Every parent knows that moment. The house has finally settled into that deep midnight hush. The dishes are clean, the doors are locked, and you're standing over the crib or the twin bed, believing your final duty of the day is complete. Then, those wide, earnest eyes look up at you, catching the sliver of light filtering in from the hallway, and they ask the impossible question.
It's the ritual question that stops time, the one that makes you remember exactly why you are there, shoulder deep in this magnificent, terrifying business of parenthood. For Eliza, it was always asked by her 7-year-old daughter, Clara, right after the final kiss goodnight, just as the weighted blanket was pulled up to her chin.
Clara's voice was small then, smaller than it was when she was demanding a third scoop of ice cream or arguing about bath time. It was the voice of pure vulnerability. "Mom," Clara would whisper, her small hand reaching out for a reassuring grasp on Eliza's forearm. "Mom, what if tomorrow is scary?" It wasn't a question about monsters in the closet anymore. Clara was past that. This was a question about the real monsters, the unknown schedule, the challenging math problem, the friend who might be unkind, the feeling of being left out, or the sheer anxiety of stepping across the threshold into a day that had never existed before. Tomorrow was vast, unwritten territory, and that blank page was terrifying. Tonight, Eliza didn't reach for the usual battered copy of Goodnight Moon or the overly animated robot book Clara had been obsessed with last week. Tonight, Eliza sat down fully on the edge of the bed, the mattress sighing softly beneath her weight. She pulled a thin, worn book from the stack beside the lamp, a book with no title on the spine, just a soft, buttery yellow cover that looked loved and read 1,000 times. This was her book, the one she saved for the hard questions. She looked at Clara, whose brow was furrowed with genuine worry, and gently smoothed the hair back from her daughter's forehead. "Well, darling girl," Eliza began, her voice low and resonant, the kind of voice that made the room feel instantly safe. "If tomorrow is scary, then we need a special story tonight. We need the story of little Lily and the great unknown day." Clara snuggled down, her fear momentarily overshadowed by the promise of a new narrative. Eliza opened the book. Though she didn't look at the text, she knew the story by heart, not just the words, but the deep foundational meaning woven beneath them. Once upon a time, Eliza began, pulling Clara into the timeless space where all good lessons live. There was a little girl named Lily. Lily lived in a very wonderful town, filled with sunshine and dogs and the smell of freshly baked bread. But Lily had a secret. She was afraid of the very best part of her life. She was afraid of the morning. While all the other children raced outside to meet the sunrise, Lily would stand at the edge of her room, peeking out the curtains, trying to see if she could predict what the day would demand of her. Eliza paused, letting the image sink in. Lily wasn't afraid of the dark. She was afraid of the light, because the light meant action. Lily's fear wasn't of specific dangers, like big, fast trucks or high places, Eliza continued, elaborating slowly to build the narrative's depth. Her fear was slippery and shapeless. It was the fear of newness. She worried about the new math lesson that might not make sense. She worried about the new girl who might sit next to her at lunch and not want to talk. She worried about the new path the bus driver took when there was construction, because the old path was safe and familiar. Lily loved routines. New challenges felt like sharp, unexpected corners she couldn't see around. Eliza looked at Clara and saw a flicker of recognition in her daughter's eyes. Clara knew that feeling well. Now, one day, the school announced the great annual project. It was a mandatory event called Exploring the Future. Every child had to pick something entirely new they had never tried before, a new sport, a new language, a new recipe, a new artistic medium, and present it to the entire town. Lily heard the announcement and felt her knees turn to oatmeal.
She wanted to choose the safest thing possible, like drawing a picture of her cat. But she had drawn her cat 100 times. The whole point was newness. Lily worried so much that she spent 3 whole nights looking up at the ceiling, thinking about all the things she couldn't do. She couldn't speak Spanish perfectly. She couldn't juggle 3 balls without dropping them. She certainly couldn't build a robot. Every idea she considered came with a guarantee of failure and embarrassment. And that, Clara, was the scariest thing of all for little Lily, the fear of failing in front of others. Finally, the night before the project proposal was due, Lily's mother found her sitting by the window, tears staining her cheeks.
"Oh, my darling," her mother said, pulling Lily close. "What tomorrow are you so afraid of now?" "I'm afraid of tomorrow," Lily cried. "I'm afraid of failing. I'm afraid of trying something new and being bad at it." Lily's mother smiled, a soft, understanding smile. She picked up a little stone from the windowsill, a smooth gray pebble, and placed it in Lily's palm. "This stone," her mother said, "is very brave. Do you know why? Because this stone is not afraid of being rough or small or imperfect. It just is. But we are not stones, Lily. We are people. And people have to learn one of the most important lessons there is. Bravery is not the absence of fear." Eliza paused again, running her thumb gently across Clara's wrist. This was the moment the theme needed to resonate. Bravery, Lily's mother continued, is the internal decision to move your feet even when your heart is pounding so hard it feels like a drum set inside your chest. It's the choice to try, even if you know you might fall, even if you know you might look silly. When you feel scared, that feeling is just your body telling you that you are about to do something important, something challenging, something that requires you to grow. It is not a stop sign. It is a signal flag. Lily thought about this. She imagined her fear as a big, booming voice trying to shout her down, telling her to stay put, to stay safe and small. But she imagined bravery as a tiny, persistent voice, whispering, "Just one step, Lily. Just see what happens next." The next morning, Lily woke up, and the fear was still there. It didn't disappear like magic, but she remembered the whisper. She went downstairs, found a dusty old toolbox in the garage, a place she had never been before, and decided that for her great annual project, she would learn to build a birdhouse. She had never used a hammer. She had never used a saw. She was absolutely certain she would lose a finger or glue the roof to the floor. On the first day, she hammered her finger instead of the nail. It hurt terribly. She cried, sitting right there on the garage floor, the wood smelling sharp and strange. The loud voice of fear boomed, "See, I told you, you are a failure. Stop now." But then she remembered the gray stone and the quiet whisper. She dried her tears, put a bandage on her finger, and picked up the hammer again, holding it differently this time. She tried again, and again, and again. The process was messy. The cuts were crooked. The house leaned slightly to the left, like it was perpetually tired. But she kept moving her feet. Eliza leaned in conspiratorially. "Clara, do you know what the bravest thing Lily did was? It wasn't finishing the birdhouse. It was showing the birdhouse." When the day of the presentation came, Lily walked up onto the stage, holding her lopsided, wobbly creation. Her fear was so loud she could barely hear the principal introducing her. She felt every eye in the room judging the gap in the roof and the uneven paint job. She stood there, frozen for a moment. And then she took a deep breath. She remembered she had chosen this fear. She told the audience, "This is the first thing I have ever built. It is not perfect. It leans and the door is crooked. But every time I made a mistake, I learned exactly how not to do it again. I did not learn carpentry this month. I learned how to move forward when I was afraid." She put the birdhouse down.
and the entire room erupted in applause, not because the birdhouse was beautiful, but because Lily's courage was. Lily walked off the stage feeling light, the heavy cloak of fear lifted, not because the new experience was over, but because she had proved to herself that she could survive the feeling of being scared. She had tried. She had been clumsy, and she was okay. Eliza closed the yellow book softly, resting it on the pillow beside Clara. She let the silence settle, allowing the lesson of little Lily to fill the quiet space. "So, my sweet Clara," Eliza said, pulling her focus gently back to the here and now, the soft lamplight reflecting in her loving eyes. The day Lily chose to face the wood and the nails, her mother wasn't there to swing the hammer for her. She had to take the action herself. And that is the secret of tomorrow. Tomorrow may indeed be scary. It might hold a pop quiz you didn't study for, or a moment when someone says something unkind, or a feeling of loneliness when everyone else seems busy. The challenge will be real. But here is the magnificent, unbreakable truth that little Lily learned, and that you must hold close to your heart. Being brave doesn't mean you stop feeling scared. It means you feel the fear. You acknowledge it, you give it a little nod, and then you try anyway. Eliza took Clara's hand, holding it firmly, grounding her daughter in the present moment. "And here is my promise, the bedrock we stand on, my fierce little girl. Tomorrow, whatever it holds, you will not face it alone. I am your foundation. I am your safety net. No matter how challenging the new day becomes, no matter how hard you have to swing your hammer, I will be here when you get home, and I will be here when you wake up. My job is to love you entirely and unconditionally, and that love is the strongest source of strength there is." Eliza began to list the concrete, unwavering assurances that form the architecture of parental love, slowly drawing out the detail required for the sustained flow of the speech. "If tomorrow you come home and you tell me the math didn't make sense, I will sit right beside you at this table, and we will look at the numbers again, together, until the confusion shrinks and disappears. If you tell me that a friend was mean, I will listen to every detail, every messy feeling, without judgment, and we will talk about how to be kind, but also how to stand up tall for yourself. If you try out for that play and don't get the role you wanted, I will hug you until the disappointment feels manageable, and we will eat ice cream and talk about the next opportunity. My dear Clara, my presence is a certainty. Think of me as a tall, solid lighthouse on the shore. Your small boat might rock and sway in the waves of tomorrow's challenges, but you will always know where the light is coming from. That light is your home. That light is my love for you. And lighthouses never move." Eliza emphasized the comforting redundancy of her love, expanding the promise of safety into a vast protective shield. You do not need to be perfect tomorrow. You do not need to be the smartest or the fastest or the best. You just need to be you, and you need to try. If you stub your toe, I will get the bandage. If you get a question wrong, I will remind you that mistakes are how our brains learn to move differently next time. If you feel like your heart is too full of worry, I will empty the worry jar with you and tell you again that it is okay to be scared, as long as you use that fear as fuel to move your feet. And when you are asleep, I will be downstairs, perhaps reading, perhaps preparing for my own tomorrow, which has its own challenges and uncertainties. But know this, every moment that passes, I am thinking of you. I am preparing your breakfast, folding your laundry, and silently sending you energy and courage for your next wake-up call. We face our tomorrows simultaneously, Clara, but we face them together, linked by this unbreakable chain of family and fierce, abiding love. Clara, whose face had softened completely during the detailed reassurances, pulled the blanket up close, burying her nose into the familiar, comforting scent of her favorite lion plushie. The fear hadn't been banished by logic, but it had been absorbed by reassurance and given context by little Lily's story. It was no longer a paralysis, it was simply a manageable feeling. She looked at her mother, the woman who was her lighthouse and her safety net, and a slow, beautiful smile spread across her face. The furrow in her brow had disappeared. She understood that courage was not a gift you waited for, but a choice you made, supported by the strength of those who loved you most. "I think," Clara whispered, her voice husky with sleep and quiet certainty, her final thought before surrendering to the night. "I think tomorrow will be okay, even if I have to swing the hammer anyway." Eliza leaned down and kissed her daughter's forehead, a long, lingering kiss that promised years of commitment and care. "That's right, my beautiful girl," she murmured. "You swing the hammer anyway, and when you come home, we will celebrate your efforts, not just your success." She slipped off the bed, turning the lamp down to a soft glow, and paused at the doorway, watching her daughter drift off, feeling the immense weight and privilege of motherhood. The world outside those four walls is noisy, chaotic, and often confusing. We live in uncertain times where the next day can feel heavy and daunting, not just for our children, but for us. We spend so much energy trying to shield our children from the world's harsh edges, but sometimes the greatest gift we can give them is not protection from the difficulty, but the inner scaffolding, the core strength to withstand it. We must teach them, as little Lily's mother taught her, that fear is an advisor, not a ruler. If this story resonates with you, if you've ever had to answer that question, what if tomorrow is scary? Remember the power of the shared narrative. Remember that your unwavering presence, your listening ear, and your simple promise, "I will be here," are the most powerful tools in that toolbox. Take a moment tonight to share your own little Lily story. Tell your loved ones, young and old, that their courage is measured not by the absence of their fear, but by the relentless, beautiful movement of their feet. Keep showing up, keep moving forward, and remember, love is the greatest blueprint for a brave tomorrow. If this message brought you comfort, please share it with another parent or friend who might need this reminder of foundational strength tonight. Let's build a brave tomorrow, one reassuring story at a time.